Welcome to KSOK Uncensored. Tonight's guest is a constitutional Christian conservative, and he is running for Washington State's next governor. Semi Bird, come on in. Hello, sir.
Hi, Kristen.
Happy to have you here. I briefly met you at the Patriots United event a few months back. Mike Terry lined that up, and it's great to see you again.
It's good to see you, and it's good to be with you tonight or today.
Yeah, you as well. So I want to talk to you about a few things. Clearly, Washington State, you have a battle ahead of you. And I want to dive into your background, which is quite unique. And quite frankly, I loved reading your life story. But I want to dive into Washington State specifically because I'm right over the Columbia. And as an Oregonian, people think Oregon's bad, but wow, Washington State has some of the worst policy in the United States. How has your background and your upbringing and military experience prepared you for this battle ahead?
Oh, wow. There's so much I can offer. I'll start with kind of going into my background a little bit. I'm that kid that was born in the ghetto of East Oakland, California. So that's where I started my life's journey, pre-civil rights in the 1960s, born to a single black woman with 7 children. And so I can honestly say that my entire life has been shaped by the strength, love, and compassion and the power of a woman, the power of family. And so mom moved us out of East Oakland for reasons, our security, our life, and a quality of life into Seattle. So I was raised in Seattle. I dropped out of high school in Seattle and I joined the United States Marine Corps. The Marines took in a boy, molded me, slapped me around a little bit, and spit out a man. I went to college, got my bachelor's degree, summa cum laude, 4.0, went to graduate school. I'm finishing up my PhD in industrial and organizational psychology. 16 years after getting my honorable discharge from the United States Marine Corps, I enlisted into Army Special Forces after 9/11. I fought and served in Army Special Forces on the A-team as a Green Beret, also went into Special Forces intelligence. I left off with my last assignment being an advisor to the U.S. Ambassador of Bangladesh. I left active duty, went at reserve status. I took a position with the United States Department of Energy and worked my way up from a GS nothing to a GS 14 out of 15. I was a federal director and acting chief of staff. I can go into a lot of background in terms of positions held or resume, if you will. But what I would say is this. My upbringing, the strength of a family, my values, my moral compass was shaped early on to again, speak to the value and the importance of a strong family. And even though I did not have a father in my life, I still would say to this day, men need to be in that house, supporting those strong women, supporting those children. It makes a difference. But my mother was amazing. And my mother told me something to the effect of, honey, no matter where you end up in life, don't blame anyone. Look in the mirror. You are either the reason for your success or your failure. And she raised me with the Bible and a dictionary. And she said, look to this book, the Bible, which will fill your soul. Look to this book, the dictionary, which will fill your mind. And if you have a strong education and you have a moral compass, there's nothing that you cannot accomplish in life. So what I would say is, in preparation for this mission, running for governor at a very progressive blue state, I believe I'm equal to the task for many reasons. I have God with me in my heart, my soul. I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior when I was 14. I have that strength that drives me. As a Special Forces Green Beret, I understand strategy, planning, and execution, and I don't give up. I became a Green Beret when I was 43 years old. So I'm not that person that feigns away from a battle or a challenge. My mother raised me to be able to navigate and overcome adversity, and my background being raised in poverty, having dropped out of school, having gone through the struggles of life that many other citizens have gone through. I believe it's time to replace career politicians with career Americans, and I'm a career American.
Amen. And you are beyond qualified. Amazing story. I read that your mom did not allow a victim mentality in your household. How did that sound?
Oh, no. Oh, absolutely. Again, I lived in civil rights. So Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was marching on the streets to give me civil rights while I was playing on the streets of the ghetto right outside the windows of a project, which were barred. The doors were barred. This was the case. And so mom knew when you adopt blaming others or saying I can't or giving up on yourself, that gives you nothing and it holds you back, similar to those tenets of critical race theory, which is why I stand strongly against it. She did not want me to be subjugated to a mindset of victimhood and fear and blame. She wanted me to take accountability for my actions so that I can navigate the adversity that she knew I would be engaging throughout my life's journey.
Amazing. She prepared you well, and wow, what you've done with her wisdom is incredible. I want to touch on something you mentioned, education and the importance of education, and I know you serve on the board of education in Washington. Want to talk about what's happening a little bit in Washington here. So there is, and I'll just quote the policy name here, RCW 28A150.22 requires all children ages 8 to 18 to receive a quality education. Yet, according to the Office of the Superintendent, less than 50% of Washington students have met these guidelines or have met these grade level standards in English, language, math, and science. What are you going to do to change the trajectory?
Absolutely. And so I'll go a little bit more on specifics to the outcomes so that your listeners have an idea. In terms of English and language arts, only 50.7% of all students, when you average out all the school districts in Washington state, were able to meet grade level standards for English and language arts. It's important to understand only 37.7 met grade level standards for math, and only 42.7 met grade level standards for science. And so, yes, we are more than failing. And in terms of solutions, it comes down to accountability. I was asked to run for Congress, to run for Senate, and I said no. I was never going to get into politics. I've served my nation as a Fed, as a soldier, and as a Marine. I said, no, I've done my duty. But when they shut down the schools and then threatened to withhold money from the schools unless you muzzled your children with these masks that never worked, I saw there was a problem right there. So let's talk solutions. In our school district, one of the first things that we did once I was elected, once I was on the board, besides giving parents a voice by creating a parent advisory committee so that we understood what parents wanted in their children's education, because parents are the primary stakeholders in children's education. Now we have that feedback and that participation. Science tells us when parents and families are engaged in children's education, children's academic results are better. That is across the board. We created a strategic plan so that we were fiscally responsible, so that we knew where we were going. We set a vision, we established a mission, and we established a plan from which we can execute on. So as governor, I'm going to hold school districts accountable. We're going to hold that leadership accountable, and we're going to bring school choice so that the money follows the backpack. This is going to bring competition. This is going to bring equity, that word that the progressives or regressives like to use at every turn. This gives those impoverished families like my own as I was growing up, parents who cannot afford to pull their children out of the public school system and put them in a private school with school choice where that money follows the backpack. Now every parent has direct access to a quality education for their children. Nothing marginalizes at-risk groups more than poor education. And I can go on that. So there's a lot. Strategic plans, accountability of districts to perform. It's incentivizing quality education instead of paying them for a bad education. And with the competition of school choice, you're leveling out the playing field. And now schools are competing for those students. And by the way, right now in Washington state, there is a record exodus from the public school district because of the poor performance of public schools. I do not blame our teachers. They are amazing. But this woke ideology, the priorities have been shifted. We are talking more about bringing woke ideology into schools, which is dividing students, subjugating at-risk students to think that the system is rigged against you, breeding helplessness in minority groups instead of raising them up. No child should ever have to feel bad about the color of their skin, whether you're a white child or a black child. It's wrong. We need to focus on the academics and raising those standards.
I completely agree. School choice, that is a beautiful thing. I want to touch on something that I feel has gotten out of control. What are your thoughts on all of the teachers' unions? Do you feel that they are partially or even fully responsible for this woke ideology that we see today?
Well, that's 100%. And when I say that, I don't say that because I have animos or even conscious bias against the teachers union. Any organization that supports teachers, typically I would be a fan of. We should all support our teachers because they're the front lines of our children's education. So I'm going to be very clear. I stand behind the teacher all day long and twice on Sunday. But the teachers union has publicized Black Lives Matter in schools. They're talking about transgender in schools, comprehensive sex education, over sexualizing children. I am not against LGBTQ, AI plus. I'm for all children, and I believe in loving all children, no matter how they identify. But when you're bringing wokeism and this ideology into schools, instead of focusing on elevating teachers and elevating academic standards, I have a problem with that. So, yes, they are directly and partially in part responsible for the poor academic performance. So is our state leadership. You know, Governor Inslee signed in that bill, Senate Bill 5044, that talks about teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion to administrative staff. Well, where's the accountability for passing bills that hold school districts accountable to improving their performance in the education of our children? So I think what's happening is certain organizations to which state leadership feels beholden to is taking over our schools. Schools belong to the community. School belongs to those parents, those families, those taxpayers who fund that education. And those are the stakeholders that state leadership should be listening to, not the special interest groups like the teachers unions and other lobbyists who are trying to influence a specific agenda of what I would consider far left regressive ideology.
Yes, absolutely. And teachers unions, is there an incentive for them? I think you just touched on this, but pardon me for not pulling the full thing out of out of your answer. But are teachers unions incentivized by these state leaders and lawmakers to teach this woke ideology or to present it to teachers?
So as I look at it, it's the opposite way around. I think
Okay.
our state leaders and legislators, and not all, obviously, but the progressive or regressive ones, they are incentivized by supporting the teachers unions ideologies because they believe that that money and that support from the teachers union, these lobbyists and these special interest groups facilitate their reelections. And so when you're looking at that money that these organizations bring to campaigns and that support that it brings to campaigns, I have to say, it's for them, they're taking that easy wrong over the
Mm.
difficult right when they should be advocating for students, parents, families, and communities that pay into our school system. It's just a different mindset, differently, completely different than my mindset. And as a school board director from day one, I made it very clear. I work for the constituents in my school district who put me in position to do a job. And I have promised a lot and I have followed through on everything. We should expect the same characteristics in our state leaders.
Yes, we should. Yeah, it sounds like they were bought and paid for. Interesting, because my mind went in a different direction. I'm always like, what? I'm always trying to find the derivative. Why is someone acting this way? And always trying to drill it down to where it's coming from. But it makes sense on why these leaders are just following suit because it really
Yes.
buys and pays for voters and votes in the next election.
It is. And really, Kristen, from the teachers union perspective, and I can't speak from them, again, your viewers can go on to the Washington Education Association, look at their website. So I'm not expecting people to listen to me and say, oh, everything Simi's saying is gospel truth. It is. But I want them to see for themselves, see what they're pushing into our school district. And I would say this: when you believe a certain thing, you believe a certain thing. And I'm not here to prejudice anybody's beliefs. This is what they believe is the right thing. I just don't agree with it. I don't agree with teaching students to fear this system, to fear the flag, to fear America, their own country. I don't believe in teaching children that their color of their skin determines their life outcomes. I don't believe in teaching children that because you're white or Anglo-Saxon, that somehow you are responsible as a fifth grader for slavery that was perpetuated in America during our darkest of times. I don't believe in that. I believe in raising our children up, building resiliency, self-esteem, having them understand their self-worth. This is what I believe. I am all for teaching the truth, teaching history, mentorship programs. There's so much we could be doing, but not this ideology that essentially subjugates at-risk children to a mindset of victimhood.
Right, right. Love it. Absolutely on board with you there. I want to talk about your run for governor, and you announced relatively early. What was your rationale behind the timing? And then also, how has your announcement played out in the communities? How have you been received?
Oh my goodness, Kristen, I am so blessed. I'll first answer your question. Yeah, starting early, this is strategy. Something that I do as a behavioral scientist and as a business consultant. I've done it for years. I've written strategies or helped organizations write their own because they have to have ownership. But strategy, planning, and execution facilitates precision. It facilitates improved performance and improved outcomes. And so I brought that same mindset of strategy to our campaign. We need to get out early because we need to engage in communities that conservatives typically have failed to do well. And that is those minority communities. Engaging with Hispanics who are typically conservative, their values, God, family, hard work, those are American values. Our African American communities, our Asian communities, I can go into great detail, but I need to get boots in the ground myself and go door to door to those businesses, to those mosques, to those synagogues, to those churches, to those community organizations, and let them know my plan to elevate all Washingtonians to a new level of reaching the American dream. That takes time. And in terms of getting out and having fellowship with multiple organizations, wow, the reception I've been receiving is simply this. Where have you been? You are giving us hope. You are giving us inspiration to get out and vote and get engaged. And that is a blessing to me because my strategy is to unify our state. I am not going to engage in trench warfare where I say I'm a Republican and you're a Democrat. I'm right and you're wrong. I would never do that because this is America where everybody has a right to their own beliefs. And I support that. What I'm saying differently is this. I'm a conservative, a constitutional Christian conservative. You may be a Kennedy Democrat or an independent. I'm saying I don't care what you are. Let's come together. Open hearts, open minds. Let's talk. Let's find solutions and take action to lift all Washingtonians up. That's what I want to do because when we listen to one another, when we diversify our perspective, we are getting a well-rounded look on a strategy that ensures our success. So unity matters, strategy matters, and the folks are seeing that right now. So I'm getting support from independents from across the state, from Democrats. As a matter of fact, one of my Democrat friends who I served in federal government with, he said, I'm a lifelong Democrat, and that's never going to change. But I'm contributing to your campaign, and I support you 100% because I know your heart, I know what you're capable of, and I know you will honor your word, and I know you're not doing it from one side against another. You're doing it for all Washingtonians. So he appreciated my Washington First agenda, and that's what we're bringing for all Washingtonians to be able to celebrate and get involved in.
Yes. And it's very important that you do reach across party lines like you are. There have been some people in my circle. Now, when I think about my followers and subscribers, they are hardcore. I'm talking, we don't wear Nike. We don't shop at Target, right? Like we are principle people. So I wanted to make sure you get the opportunity to clarify, though you're reaching out across party lines, that doesn't mean that the platform you're running on is up for discussion, correct?
Oh, oh, my friend, no. And thank you for that opportunity for clarification. No, I will never compromise my values or my beliefs to get a vote. Never. I'm not going to lie to get a vote ever. I was raised right. I was raised better than that. We call that character. We call that integrity, something that matters a lot to me. But what I'm saying is this. It's unreasonable for me to stand strong on my beliefs and expect someone else to give up what they believe in. What I'm saying is, I don't expect them to. They can bring their beliefs to the negotiating table. And if they're ready and willing to fund our law enforcement, to ensure that our streets are safe for all citizens, we're in it together. When they want to reform, support me and reform our broken welfare system that subjugates at-risk groups to a lifetime of poverty, and I dare say a generational lifetime of poverty, then I want to listen to them. If they're willing to join me in the mission to bring real solutions to facilitating school choice where the money follows the backpack and elevating the quality of education in all neighborhoods of this state, I'm with you. If they want to support me in giving tax relief instead of making up taxes, which goes against our state constitution, I want to hear from them. We cannot reasonably achieve success in Washington state if we're not willing to listen to folks with a differing opinion, not
Right.
giving up our beliefs, but simply listening and taking value from what they have to say. And maybe we don't agree on how we approach welfare reform, but I think parents are parents. And our unconditional love for our children would say, this man is talking about improving our school system. So where I don't agree with him on this, I can agree with him on this. And lastly, on
Right.
this, statistics show that we agree on approximately 90 to 93% of all key issues, but yet we focus on the 7% that we don't agree upon. I'm flipping that around and going back to common sense and saying again, I'm not asking you to give up your beliefs. You're not going to ask me to give up mine because I'm not. But I want to hear from you. I want you to participate in our Washington First agenda.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for further clarifying. I knew your heart. I've met you in person. You're a force. You're such an amazing person, and to be in your
Thank you.
presence, you can feel your passion and who you are. So
Thank you.
I knew where you were, but I think it's really important. There's a group out there, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's called the Blue Angels, and right now they're doing a lot of work with some Washington politicians that I know that are conservative, and there's a lot of concern throughout the Republican Party in Clark County that what's the real agenda here? Are people that are not willing to bend going to be seen as, what happened in Nazi Germany, where if you weren't willing to see the other party's views and start really melding into more of a middle setting, that you're going to be seen. It's just, it has a negative connotation to
It
it. So I just
does.
wanted to make sure that we touched on that there.
Well,
And I already
100%,
knew the
Kristen.
answer, but I'm glad to hear
Yeah,
it from you directly.
absolutely. And I've got to say, you are 100% right. There is a movement out there, and I've seen it. So once you get into politics, you start to understand all these different subgroups who are operating right below the lines so that the public doesn't see. And just like
Right.
any other special interest groups, they're pulling at you. No, you've got to give up on this. You've got to give in on this. You need to move towards. To me, that's not integrity. You're either what you say you are or you're not, right? So it's important for people to understand, and I make this very clear. I'm not represented by any organization, whether you want to call it mainstream, MAGA, moderate, minion, I don't care what you call it. The only representation I care about is the representation of the American people and the citizens of Washington state. I'm never going to compromise my values or beliefs because I don't need to. I believe conservative policies do more to improve our state, and you can see what we have been living with under progressive or regressive policies, out of control lawlessness, homelessness, a breakdown of our education system, a breakdown of our family, of our social systems. Again, I can go on and on. We don't facilitate positive change by compromising our values or beliefs ever. We stand strong and we bring common sense. I've got to say one last thing on this. I felt this when I gave mass choice in my school district. So if your viewers ever want to know the nature of my character and standing strong, I promised that if I had the light of the tunnel, I would give mass choice, and I did. And they tried to sue me. They
Mm.
tried to recall me, and they're still trying to recall me because I knew mass did not work. I talked to the health department. I ensured that we would cause no further harm, but I also knew as a behavioral scientist, children were suffering, children were dying, lost learning all for an illegal mandate that violated Article 1, Section 1 of the Washington State Constitution. Oh, no, my friend. I am unafraid to stand my ground, to advocate for our students, for our families, and for all citizens. And I have to say, when you say you're a constitutionalist, that is a double-edged sword. I'm willing to yield it to create value for everyone because the Constitution is the Constitution. Section 2 of Article 1. The United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land. That means something to me, and I will never change that. We don't need to rewrite the Constitution. People need to reread the Constitution.
Yes, they do. That is something I have found over the past 3 years of doing this, is that people are completely inept when it comes to understanding the Constitution and basic laws. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you are on the right side of things and that you are standing your ground. And it's generally not the popular move, right? So we get the
No, it is
backlash
not.
for sticking out, but you're doing the right thing. I want to just touch on, I know we have about 3 minutes left, but some of the wild policies coming out of Washington right now. And when I say coming out, people say, oh, only 30% of these bills pass. That might be it. But a lot of these wacky things are passing in Washington state right now. I mean, we have what's really concerning, which this is just really interesting. This just came out yesterday. Washington state passes reproductive shield law. And the bill heads to the governor's desk. So, gosh,
Mhm.
wish you were there right now. So basically, it's out of state folks seeking reproductive and gender affirming health care in Washington state. That passed. It passed the Senate 29-20. So it's heading to the governor's desk. And as soon as Inslee, we all know he's going to pass it,
Mhm.
then it'll be signed into effect immediately. Gosh, I'd love to gather real quick thoughts on that because I want to cover a few more.
Oh, yeah. And so you said it. This is the ideology and mentality of our state leadership. And so it's not just for adults coming in from out of state, for children coming in from
Yeah.
out of state. And 5599, another bill that was put out there amongst thousand, well, it's over 1,000, I believe, right? And so to say that gender or certain types of healthcare, which is gender affirming treatment, isolating parents from that decision,
Mm.
hiding what children are doing from their parents. This is the mindset of this state's leadership and many of our legislatures. This is why communities need to get out and vote. They need to understand what's being put across that governor's desk. I do not discriminate against the LGBTQAI plus. I've been very clear in that. But I'm also very clear of saying this. I will never isolate parents from their children. And why we are supporting these bills and not focusing on pursuit policy and protecting our citizens on the streets is beyond my comprehension. Why are we focusing on these things that are not important to the citizens, but yet our education system is going down the drain, and so is our law in our state. So there's a lot we should be focusing on. As governor, these bills would not see the light of day past my desk. The same thing with compromising our Second Amendment rights, Article 1, Section 24 of the Washington
Yes.
State Constitution, when you're starting to take weapons away from our citizens while criminals will never have a problem getting guns. We need to get to the root cause of gun violence. Weapons don't kill people, people kill people.
Yes, I know. Such a simple concept that so many people just can't wrap their mind around. I know time's almost up here. I just want one thing. Talk to us about
Yes.
this proposed Washington state basic income.
Yeah. So again, this is when you have a certain ideology that talks about, and essentially it's Marxist, right? When you talk about leveling the playing field, that sounds really well, but people don't really understand the root cause. They don't understand the consequences. America was based on a free market society. We are a nation of entrepreneurship and capitalism. And when we start to compromise what small businesses can or cannot do, or mandatorily causing more harm to the small businesses that employ over 50.7% of all employees in the state, then we're doing ourselves more harm than good. We should be out there supporting small businesses, creating opportunity for more groups of all all backgrounds to have access to starting up their own small business because it creates value for all citizens in the state. So I'm not for any types of policy changes that causes more hardship, like they tried to do with this, the CARES Act, and much more. I'm for elevating small businesses because that is where we generate more capital and more revenue to create value for Washingtonians, and so that we can give tax relief back to Washingtonians, something we have not had for 40 years. We're bringing a
Yes.
whole new mindset of governance to Washington State.
Oh, I loved reading through your website and everything you're about. By the way, beautiful website. I'm very visual, but I also liked just the layout. So whoever your team is, nice pick there. But wonderful website. I see that you're engaging youth in Washington State. I
Yes.
would love to second that message. I think that's very important. There's a sneak peek of the front page of the website. I think it's very important that youth get involved. They are our future, as much as that is painful to think about with the current youth we see all over TikTok. But it's very important. And so, where can people find you? And people listening, I would say my viewers probably have kids that are Gen Z and millennials. I have some in those age brackets. Send your kids to this website. What is it? Birdforgovernor.com?
Yes, it's
Okay. Okay.
birdforgovernor.com. That's bird, BIRD, for governor.com. We have our youth movement. We're engaging our youth. They're called The Flock. They have their own page. And again, whether you're in Oregon, Idaho, or any other state, if you're listening, go to birdforgovernor.com and please donate to our campaign because we can bring positive and transformational change to Washington State. We can bring common sense back where we actually value all of our constituents. Please donate to
Yes.
our campaign and help us transform Washington State into the greatest state in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, California too, because we all know Washington, Oregon, California seem to act together. So, with this man in charge, we can all see real change in the area. Thank you so much for coming on. I really want to have you on again when it's closer to Election Day. We could even do a few more times because there's just so much to cover. You have a lot to offer, and your movement is strong. Thank you for everything you're doing, and I can't wait for the next time.
Thank you, Kristen, and God bless you. Thank you so
You as
much.
well. Thank you very much. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to KSOK Uncensored. We will see you next Thursday.